Hi, YouTube family. It's Daughter of the Most High. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend so far. I have listened to more of Thanks for the Memories by MK Ultra Mind Control Slave, Susan Ford, who also goes by Bryce Taylor. And in this next chapter, she talks about the education system in California in the early 80s and how she was a part of that. And she shares how mind control was a big part of some of the school systems, private schools, not the public school system, but private schools. And that's what she's talking about in this next chapter. And I wanted to share that with you because those students, those children would now be about 40 years old. So it's just shocking to find out that there are so many mind control slaves out there, like more in the California area, but elsewhere, and in other countries as well, I'm finding out. But she lives in California, and so she shares what she knows from there. Also, she it has had many like connections with presidents and other government officials all through her years. And I have not shared that much about that, but she was absolutely central in the Reagan administration and George Bush, and Bob Hope was one of her handlers for a while. And so she has met many prominent people. So it's not everybody just in California, it's also in Washington, D.C. But it's that elite group of the rules don't apply to us. And all of this is, of course, leading to the New World Order and creating this superior race of people. So that's what she is going into in this next chapter. I haven't timed the minutes yet. I'll just have to stop it when she's done with however many pages this is. But I'll go ahead and play it for you now.
243, Bryce Taylor, Thanks for the Memories, Chapter 27, Education 2000, Las Virgenes School District. Henry once said, "There is nothing more convincing than to have a pregnant woman speaking out for educational issues." He had me speaking to groups that were involved in various aspects of education, from the top officials and bigwigs down to California state legislators. He said I was fighting to increase the level of education for my future progeny, starting now, so by the time they were in school I could rest assured that they would get the finest education possible. I began this in 1978 when I was very pregnant with Kelly. He used me in Sacramento to further legislation for our children's education. And I went to Washington, D.C., when it became necessary to take what had been won in California in the way of educational advancement and present it to influential people in D.C. who could make a difference in furthering this goal. California was the model, and once the framework was set, they wanted the new educational system to be used nationwide, but that took planning and fortitude. Years of preparation went into this to ensure that the nation's children would be ready for the year 2000, when their transformation of the masses would be complete. And peace will guide the planet and love will rule the stars. The dawning of the age of Aquarius. Through programming, this song was instilled within my mind to anchor a lot of this educational activity and to also bring me under a greater influence of my true birth sign, Aquarius. The plan was for my humanitarian interests to be of such a magnitude that I would become internationally known as a leader in ending child ritual abuse. This focus would have served to keep those who found out about this abuse busy and distracted with satanic behavior and still not aware of mind control until they could gradually implement the transformation to get people more completely under control. They referred to the time frame after the year 2000 takeover as the Great Transformation. Don Zimring, the superintendent of schools for the Las Virgenes School District, LVSD, was heavily involved in deciding which children got special instruction. Each special child in the school had their own program designed and was individually monitored so they would get the early training and conditioning they would need to fulfill their destined position within the Hidden Inner Circle framework. I was programmed to report to the LVSD office to see Don Zimring in order to be instructed in regard to the special children who were in need of individual attention and individual programs. I sat before him in a robotic sponge state, while he rattled off profiles of children and special videos or instruction booklets they were to be subjected to. By the time the children hit elementary school, they were conditioned sufficiently so that their programs could be absorbed readily and easily through just saying a word that opened their access way to special abilities, like photographic memory or rapid learning states. Many women, purposefully placed in teacher and principal positions, were either programmed themselves or just didn't pay attention when a child was removed from class for special instruction. Children were targeted for their natural talents and abilities. For example, in families who were athletically inclined, or where one or both parents excelled in sports, they put in access codes for super athletes, and then someone from higher up had the option of stepping in and sponsoring a child with a promising future, which meant that this higher-up funded so-called special education for this child, often without the parent's conscious involvement or consent, and from then on had a special interest in how things were taught to the child. Kelly was monitored closely, always having a special tutor to shore her up. Our controllers viewed her as a young beauty and noted her extremely positive social skills and built upon those. There was an inner group of school officials, parents and teachers who were involved in seeing to it that the preconditioned children were groomed in the ways necessary for them to step into future pre-designated positions. 244. The people behind this scheme have done endless research on the brain in response to everything, including spinning rides at amusement parks, and know just what level of stimulation is needed to make programming most effective. Over the years, the research has been tried and tested through the experimentation on children who were targeted before birth. The genetic engineering aspect is highly used and they take into consideration the inherent genetic talents and abilities coupled with just the right training at the right age to produce a highly advanced child. But, in essence, what they truly have created is a highly advanced robot that has been dehumanized to the point of not being able to think or choose for themselves. They have been robbed of their free will or any real choice in their lives. The California capital Sacramento and Senator Pete Wilson, the organization and framework is large. There were many people involved and the technology over the years has risen to the level where children in the preschools require less trauma and torture in the beginning stages to set in the cues and programs that will be built upon in later years. Pete Wilson was very involved with all of this and was set into position in the 1980s. I was sent to Sacramento with Annie Lund, the principal of Sumac Elementary School, in the early 1980s, to set up these programs through the school districts. Although at the time I didn't know I was participating in this, years later, during a flashback, I remembered boarding a plane with her, getting off with her and being met by a taxi that drove us to offices of the California State Department of Education. It seems that the instructions to implement these special programs filtered down from the top. The higher-ups see it as technologically advancing the children, creating mega minds of the future for later use within their own system. The children are force-fed information into previously set up inner systems of mind files and are trained to be able to accept vast amounts of highly technological information beginning at age 3. They are not taught to think, but only to be used and accessed like a computer. Annie Lund was highly involved in the project and had been since its inception. The framework was set into great motion in Sacramento in the early 80s between Anne, Don Zimring, Pete Wilson and several officials from Washington, D.C. I was flown to D.C. to speak before a committee meeting to describe how the program was progressing. Sometimes a child would be demonstrated to the committee to show the advanced mind technology that was possible. Disbelieving senators and congressmen in the know needed to see to believe. The child could be made to perform on cue and recite mega amounts of highly complex technological information. They saw these children as being prototypal descendants of mine. These particular politicians knew how I was used with Henry Kissinger and were amazed to know that any similarly conditioned child could possess the same qualities of mind ability. Reagan was also involved and so was Bush. Our instructions for individual children's programming often came from the White House level, as many of these wealthy people adopted and supported children with promise. These elite overseers viewed the special children as the minds of the future world leaders, pre-programmed with their own wisdom and desires for how they feel the world should be run, based on their own values. God help us. LVSD was the No. Pilot program, and many funds were approved to be used within the school district, but were actually skimmed off the top to finance a lot of special programs, really aimed at the children who were being targeted. Children who were targeted were dismissed from class, taken to a room for special attention, and were hooked up to special audio tapes, linked with accompanying picture books, in the beginning years, and then later on to computers and sound. Large reels of film were used occasionally when not available on video, and it was timely for the information to be visually cued into a child's brain. But usually it was done by video or computer. It created complex brain function and set up controls within the child that these people manipulated. They have performed experiment after experiment over the years to develop the most effective equipment to use on children. Much of the funding earmarked for use within the school district was siphoned off to be used for research and to pay technicians to develop and test the equipment, computer programs, etc. During that time, many of the state school funds were misappropriated and used for things other than what they were approved for. 245. I am pretty sure now that the memories I had of accompanying Reagan to Point Mugu and other places for speeches was when I was being demonstrated to others and was cued to speak about the same technology that was being used with children 3, 4, and 5 years old. Reagan used me often for demonstration because he said I stood the test of time, which meant that I had been in operation for over 30 years without a leak, or without a problem. I heard him explain to people that I was so real that he sometimes forgot I was a programmed robot. He said he liked that because you get all the benefits of a robot with human softness added. He was very proud of the technology and spoke freely about it within a trusted group. I was presented to the military, to politicians, etc., for them to see and witness the technology, and then I presented my pre-programmed information. Many requested private demonstrations of my sexual capabilities in order to become believers. Whenever there were men at the presentations, and usually they were men, there were private one-on-one sexual demonstrations afterwards. In my head, when I was retrieving these memories, I kept hearing the phrase, Senate Subcommittee Meetings on Advancing Education in America. I remember Pete Wilson speaking, and there was a demonstration done on the educational system that had nothing to do with what was actually going on behind the scenes, but they had to justify the large amounts of money that they were trying to appropriate for their secret system. It was all a sham. They knew they would get the money, they knew where it was coming from and how they could get it. It was just a matter of making the steps and actions look like it was all above board, while behind the scenes they planned the new technology and education, privately. Their attitudes were that other people in the private sector wouldn't be able to grasp what they were doing because they didn't have the required intellect. So, they justified its secrecy this way, feeling this new system was the advancement of society, and until people could really see the results in action and how effective these methods of education would be in the advancement of society, they needed to keep the methodology quiet. They used big words to intimidate those people they wanted to leave them alone, and they were quite successful at accomplishing that. People who couldn't understand what they were saying would back down and walk away. They used me for this project beginning in the early 80s and didn't care whether I was pregnant or just out of the hospital or what. They just overrode what my personal situation was by using my multiplicity. Pete Wilson was probably elected governor so that they could pull this whole thing off without any problem. Anne Nicklund introduced me to him in the very early 80s, and the sexual connection was made. Then I was fed information by the council, from the hotel room in the Holiday Inn or the Marriott, to deliver to Pete even in the early years. He jumped through all the hoops they presented to him with no problem, and so they kept promoting him just like they did Reagan. Only difference was, Reagan seemed ignorant compared to Pete, and I guess that meant that Pete was more knowledgeable and better informed about certain situations, beyond acting in accordance with what the council wanted. Reagan just acted in accordance, like a puppet with no understanding of what he was doing in so many situations, always worried about the state of affairs of the nation, but easily calmed and his attention diverted to another subject. The school district plans were directly tied into the preschool abuse. They made sure they had qualified preschools set up in areas near the elementary and secondary education schools so the children would be prepared before entering kindergarten. Then the public school system had in place the network of people to carry out the children's further education. The controllers have people placed in positions, high up, in widely varying areas to fund their plan and to fill the positions required in order to make it successful. They had programmed people in place from the janitor all the way up to the school district supervisors and on into the state and federal government. All key positions were filled to make sure their plan is implemented and fail-safe. They moved key people around as needed. 246 in 1985.
I'm not sure what she's going to go into next. I have not listened to that part. I did listen to the education part and wanted to share that with you because, again, it's so shocking to hear that this sort of thing has been going on for a long time and that these people are, in fact, these children are in their, 35, 40 years old and mind control slaves. At this stage of learning about this, I have not heard yet how Sue Ford or Kathy O'Brien were integrated, how they realized much of what they do is stored in their memory within that particular personality or that particular compartment. So they aren't even aware of some of the things that they've done or the things that they've seen or what's gone on through the years. And so once they're actually integrated, they can start piecing together that information. And that part of this journey is going to be so interesting for me. So far, I've only been hearing about the various ways that mind control slaves are used. And to the extent that they're used, it's really, it's so shocking, their lives. And I'm interested to hear once they actually start therapy and how they're integrated. I don't know how people with dissociative identity disorder are integrated. I don't know, and I really want to learn about that. So that's pretty much all I have for today. I just wanted to share another portion of this MK Ultra mind control programming that's been going on for a long time, and just to raise awareness about it. It's my heart that more people would listen to this and find out about it. Now, there are 22,684 views on this particular book. And of course, some of those views are repetitive because it is 10 hours and 44 minutes. So repeat views, because you're not going to read something that long in one sitting. But my point is that there is some people that are, gaining awareness about this. This was posted on her channel, this person, Trishali, whoever that is, in 2018. So coming up on 3 years ago now, it's almost 2021. And it was February 2018. So it's my heart that people continue to find out about this and to find out about, it's just devastating, shocking and devastating to hear how far and wide the corruption goes and how our government officials are participating in this. Ronald Reagan and Henry Kissinger and George Bush and various people, and then of course various entertainers like Bob Hope and other people. She also talked just before getting into this section about how the Dodgers baseball team and Tommy Lasorda are all a part of this mind control, and that if the team did well in a particular game, that they would get to have a mind control slave for sex that evening after the game. That was part of it. And they would actually, the mind control slaves would actually line up, including Steve Harvey's wife, I believe her name's Cindy Harvey, and their kids. So some people want adults, some people want kids, boy or girl. Yeah, they all line up, and then these baseball players would choose who they want to have sex with after having a good game. And then if they didn't play a good game, they would line them up and then tell them, you don't get anything today. That was their little bonus thing after the game. You don't get anything today because you didn't play well. And they would just file out. All the mind control slaves would file out. And I was listening to that, and it was like, it's just shocking, the corruption and how far and how wide. I know I keep saying that, but it's to me, I had no idea that, this group of people function like this and on this level. And it doesn't mean that everybody that's wealthy or everybody that's an athlete or in Hollywood or in the government, it all participates in that. But you can't tell me that they don't know about it, because they're around it. And you generally know, within reason, maybe not the full depth, but you get hints of some of the things that go on. So I'm still just trying to wrap my brain around this. And I'm grateful for the place that the Lord has me, because again, it's another awakening to truth, the things that have gone on. And I'm always grateful for that. I'm a truth person. I don't shrink away from truth. And a lot of people do. And I've posted this, and some people are still thinking Trump's going to, make it into office or whatever. And the fact is, they just choose who they're going to put into office. And they choose the agenda, and all of that is just decided. They're all in cahoots with one another. To some degree they are. It's all a big game, and it's a big show. And like, what's his name? Bernard, that I had mentioned last week, that he says there's literally the real world within this mirage of a world that people believe is actually the world, and it's not. He said it's all just a joke and a farce. And so as we head into the end times, some of this stuff, it's been being exposed in 2020. I mean, we are really turning a corner this year, and I'm interested to see what the Lord has for us in 2021. I'm so grateful to be a believer. I'm so grateful for truth. I personally detest evil and corruption, and I truly have a heart for truth and honesty and love and kindness and healing and restoration and just all the good things that God is, and truly loving one another, not using one another and actually robbing people of their own brain, their own life. And I'm not sure what condition Sue Ford is at this time. I have heard her speak on one video, and she seems, you could tell she's integrated, but there's no way that history that she has lived, she would need that's something that only God could heal. That is something only a supernatural, divine, glorious, all-powerful God could truly heal. So I'm really looking forward to that stage of this journey. And when I do get there, I will share with you. I will share with you. I have listened to 5.5 hours of Sue's book now. I was going to call her Brace because I kind of interchange because she interchanges. But I've got about 5 hours left and 15 minutes. And so it'll take me probably a couple weeks to finish this audiobook. I'm so glad whoever put this together. I'm grateful because I looked up her book on Amazon some weeks ago, and it's for a ridiculous price. And that's what they do, is they only print certain copies, and then they, make them very expensive. And not her, but whoever handles that material. So Anyway, that's all I have for you, family of God. That's what I have for you today on this journey that I've been on. So I hope you have a wonderful Sunday and a good week ahead of you. So I will see you soon, family.